Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Sunday Conversations, and I'm very excited. I sit down this week with Billy Rowlee, racing veteran and iRacing grandmaster. We're going to discuss how big actually is iRacing already, what are the economics of it, and how do you get involved? And then our conversation takes a really cool twist. We're going to dive into the economics of racing sponsorships. Are sponsorships dead? And we're going to take a look at a new twist. How do you really provide value to that marketing partner? So check it out. Here we go.
How you been otherwise, man? You're fucking all over the place going to races.
Then
Take a day off?
Rarely. I figured I ran the math, was it 2 weeks ago, that I stayed home for the first time and didn't go to a race for the first weekend since 2 weeks before Little 500 in May.
Yeah.
So I've literally been, I've been to 1 to 3 races a weekend every weekend since May. And it's been...
Dude, you got me topped. We've been to 32 races this year. Like, I went back and counted the other day just to kind of, like, I don't know, because I was curious, I guess. And,
Sure.
But, dude, yeah, you've definitely got us topped, man. That's insane.
I'm truthfully, I'm really blessed. I've got Jacob Wilson when he goes and races, Scott Hampton, Kyle May, Ronnie Wuerdeman. I got 4 or 5 guys that I go race with, and usually if one of them's racing, pick which one I'm going with and go.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky.
That makes it fun, man. But so kind of leading into this conversation that I kind of wanted to talk about iRacing stuff here, but I mean, that's something that I think you've done incredibly well. I mean, maybe you don't race yourself as, as much, but you're around it and you're around the people and you're around the community of it.
Right.
And, which then kind of gives you access to go hang out and do all the cool shit, which I think is awesome as hell, And so that's kind of the dynamic I wanted to dive into with this conversation, and just really, I want to do this every week and, talk to people that are in the community and just share what's going on. Cause dude, I think it's exciting as hell. And it's brought conversations, like this together. I've really enjoyed getting to know James and just, the people that I've met through it. I think it's awesome as shit. And everybody's looking for that sense of community and wants to be part of something. And I think this one's badass. And
I think it's a beautiful way to get somebody that never thought they could race themselves, but wants to be involved in it. This is a great way for somebody to get into it to where they can kind of feel part of something. I grew up playing, I mean, me and you have talked about it before, but I grew up playing like Call of Duty and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of the friends that I actually have, I got from playing Call of Duty. Like, I've got friends from Florida that I only see them once or twice a year, but I literally met them online through Call of Duty, which is weird, but it's just kind of how it is.
It's how it works, yeah.
But I mean, it's no different than going to the Chili Bowl and meeting up with people for the first time and becoming friends and all that. And iRacing's been the same way, where, I've gotten to know James really well over the last year, and Skylar Brown's another one on the Pro League that I've, started to get in. I mean, we're not buddy or anything, but like there's a lot of different guys that you meet through it, and you just basically become friends, and it kind of turns into a, and with the Twitch stream, it's the same thing. I've got friends on there that I never would have met otherwise, but
exactly.
I met guys that there was 2 guys that came up that are big supporters of my channel that came up to Little 500 and camped out with us all week. Had a blast.
Dude, see, that's what and that's all anybody wants. You want to hang out with cool people to do cool shit that y'all enjoy, man. That's life.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's just kind of the evolution of it, and I think there's a lot of people that don't think that you can become a part of something, that you have to go in, balls deep and massive before you can actually do anything with it. And it's just not the case. It's, you can be a part of something that's small, but it feels really big. And the dirt track community in general is, it's not the biggest in the world, but it's, I would say, one of the most loyal. And to me, loyalty is more than a lot of things. And I think the camaraderie of it, most of my racing stories that I couldn't never tell anybody else, is the fun stuff of getting to the racetrack, hanging out after the races, that sort of stuff. The getting there to me is half the fun. The racing is just the extra, I mean, hell, I got to meet Shane Carson this year and drink beer with him. That was
Shane Carson's cool as shit. He's the
dude.
coolest dude out there. He's the coolest guy
When
out there.
I told Matt Moore to go to the Hoosier 100 with me, so he got there and he said, "Well, my dad and Shane are coming." I said, "Well, hell, bring him down to the infield. Let's hang out." And hell, Greg was down there, and we were all just cutting up, telling stories, having a couple beers, and I was like, "See, this is to me what it's supposed to be. This
Absolutely.
is why, on the real side of things, like with Scott, his car owner Ted is literally one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. He's made racing fun, I know, for me and Scott again. And one of the crew guys, actually, we met on Twitter, and he just showed up to the track one night. We were like, this guy's pretty cool. You want to go to the track with us from now on? And we've all been good friends ever since. So
I love that.
I mean, it's just the camaraderie within racing, and especially now that iRacing can kind of bridge the gap, especially through now that you can actually race a sprint car on there and you can somewhat get a good feel of it. Actually, Ronnie, good friend of mine, I spot for him on the Silver Crown series. He actually, we were down in the infield, waiting to go qualify at Eldora, and he'd been in a champ car twice. He ran around his yard once to make sure that nothing was leaking, and then he ran DeCoin, and we ran, I don't know, maybe 30 laps, ran into some trouble in the race. And
so that's his first time in a champ car, and let's go to a mile track to coin, right?
Yes, and actually
totally awesome. I love that in itself.
Well, yeah, and Ronnie's cool anyway. But funny story about DeCoin though, I've been there enough times where I kind of know a little bit about that racetrack. And I said, "So what's the game plan here, Ronnie?" And he said, "Well, I'm just going to go down the front straightaway, breathe it at the flag stand, get in the corner, and start working my way farther and farther into the corner." I kind of chuckled and I said, "That's a great plan." Me knowing that the flag stand is 3/4 of the way down the straightaway. By the end of the first session, he's hauling her in there like a sprint car, and I'm like, "All right, back her down a little bit. Let's."
Right.
But we were at Eldora, and he's like, "Man, I feel comfortable." I'm like, "That's kind of, you have 7 laps around here. That's kind of sketchy." And he goes, I think we'll be good." I said, "Okay." He crossed the start finish line, and he said, I came over the radio and I said 17-0. And he goes, I just heard the radio key up. I didn't hear him talk, but I was standing in turn 4 and I never heard the throttle breathe. And I just went, okay, well, this is either going to go well or the car is going to end up in a pile. And he come into 3, and I mean, he was wide open and railed her off in there and cranked a 17 or 16.5. And I'm like,
wow.
I was like, "Bud, you picked up a half second." He goes, "Yeah, I know. I didn't lift." I'm like, "Yeah, that was scary as hell." But
that's awesome. I love that story.
When he got out of the car, he came into in the infield, and I gave him a hug, and I was like, "Dude, that was nuts." And he goes, "You're going to think I'm absolutely nuts," but he said, "I felt like I've been here before." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "If it wasn't for iRacing the last 5 or 6 years, I wouldn't have been able to do that."
Yeah.
Not even close. He's like, "I literally rolled out." Like at DeCoin, he's like, I was nervous. I was completely nervous. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But he's like, I've probably got 10,000 laps at Eldora on iRacing before. He's like, I had it in my head that this is okay. And he ran. I mean, I think we ended up 9th overall in qualifying. He got up to 7th for a lot of the race, and then made a couple mistakes and fell back. But I mean, he ran 12th or 13th or something like that. And I'm like,
so I'm going to go back, and here's what I just heard you say right there. So this dude's got 2 races in a Silver Crown car at this point, right?
Correct.
One at a mile flat track. I mean, a horse racing track, basically.
Yeah.
And then, probably the fastest and I'd probably say, from just talking to people, the most intimidating dirt tracks, Eldora, out there with, it's
definitely one of them.
It's against the wall, a foot from a wall, wide open, and one mistake and it hurts and it's expensive.
Yeah.
And so you're telling me that he is so comfortable with this at this point that he qualifies 9th in a field of stacked cars and runs, not quite top 10, but because he was so comfortable with the track.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He
loved that story.
My favorite accomplishment of that whole entire weekend, I mean, yes, they both passed us in the race, but he went out and out-qualified CJ Leary and Tyler Courtney, out-qualified a lot of guys. And I was just like, Ronnie,
this is
like
professional race car drivers. Yeah.
I was like, they do this all the time. Like, this is their job. He ran a Focus midget 10 years ago and decided he wanted a Silver Crown car, and he started saving his pennies and got a beautiful DRC and got a good motor, and he's like, I want to do this right and go learn and everything else. And he ran really good. And my favorite part of the night, though, we were standing around after the race was over, drinking a couple beers, and the Rams racing hauler came out.
Yeah.
Justin Grant's midget. He came driving out, and he stopped. And I looked up in the cab, and Justin was driving it. So I hopped up on the door, and I said, "What's going on, man?" I said, "You ran decent." And he goes, "Meh, yeah, I ran okay." And just
That's so him.
he's like, I was like, "Dude, you ran like second or third in pretty much everything." He's like, "Yeah, I know, but I like to win." I'm like, "Well, I get it." And he goes, and he pointed at Ronnie's car, and he goes, "I don't know who that is, but he did a damn good job tonight." I was like, that means a lot. That really does.
That's truly a great. I mean, I've gotten to know Justin a lot this year, and he's a great dude, number one. But
Absolutely.
I mean, he's a guy that's refined his skill in racing and really made his way. And that's one thing.
Absolutely.
I love about the story sometimes. But yeah, I mean, he so gets an appreciation what a good race car driver is, and he's so
Absolutely.
humble from that standpoint. And yeah, dude, that's awesome. That's a really cool side story.
Yeah, I thought it was cool, and it just kind of all stems back to, it all comes back to, a respect thing of when we knew we were starting to gonna get lapped. I think, hell, we didn't get lapped until 40 laps into the race or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, we knew we weren't going to win the race or anything, so it's like, why mess with the leaders and cause issues and all that. And it's a respect thing. Those guys, race car drivers are elephants. Whether it's iRacing or real life, we don't forget anything. So it's like, well, I mean, because I know, I mean, I still have a bone to pick with a guy that crashed me out in a race from like 20 years ago.
Oh, I so get
so
it.
It's like,
so get it.
So
it's that high school war story. It's like, I'm never forgiving it.
It's like,
that.
Dude, you cost me $25 one time 20 years ago, and this isn't going to work for me anymore. And
we still got a problem.
Yeah, we still have a problem. You can say you're sorry all you want to. Until I get even, we're not friends. But but it's all a respect thing, and it's the same thing kind of with iRacing. Is the deeper that you go into it, the more serious that it gets. And it really, truthfully, and I'm definitely guilty of this, of iRacing for me gets to the point where, like, okay, I want to there's a league called DSRL, and there was probably 10 pros in that race, and I started 7th and drove to the lead and won the thing. And I have never shook so bad in a real race car in my life. I've won races all over the place, and I've never once shaked or
had that feeling.
Yeah. And like this, my chat and stream was making fun of me because, like, I'm sitting here and I'm just,
dude, I'm
just shaking.
My son, who is like he's not a pro Fortnite, but he's good. And, he streams and they call it a sweaty. In that world, they call it a sweaty, and I was talking to Mike McKinney about this, a modified driver, super cool kid, and he's like, I get more nervous for like an iRace that kind of means something than I ever do for a real race. And
Absolutely.
I can so attest to that. I mean, I won this IndyCar race at Daytona with just a group of guys I was playing with on there. And it was like the most satisfying win I had ever had in anything. And I won
absolutely.
A few races, and truly it was like, wow, from a satisfaction standpoint, it was awesome.
Well, I mean, and that's what I think that you get on iRacing. You don't get, and actually I don't remember who said it, but somebody said, well, you don't shake in a race car because you have all that adrenaline that's like working you up but keeping you calm. True. And there's always that thought in the back of your head of like, if I mess up, I might die.
Yeah.
And on this, it's like, if I do, then, a big deal. But your body just kind of takes over and you shake. And, but it really truthfully gives you, and I've gotten a couple guys, Mark Jessup, actually, he ran USAC sprint cars, back in the early 2000s, won a couple USAC races on pavement for Keith Coons. He's driven for Tony Stewart and Casey Kane and all them guys. And he got on it a couple weeks ago, and he's hooked. Like, he was like, this kind of feeds the itch that I get every once in a while because I'm not racing.
It does.
And he's that was really the main reason why I got into it, because when my racing career kind of fizzled out, I didn't have the money to go race myself. So I was like, I got to do something. And, going and helping guys was definitely, a good thing. And going to the track and being active and all that, yeah, that helped. But it was like, I still want to race. I still have that competitive
Absolutely.
piece. Yep. And iRacing's really done a lot to fill that void. It's been fun. It has pissed me off to the
Royally?
seventh dimension of
Oh my
hell
gosh.
before.
It's like I
But
just wasted my entire night.
yes, there's a series that we run a lot called DOB, and these races they would pull it's restructured now, so it's a lot different, but they would pull 60 cars, and it's like, okay, cool, you qualified third, so you're in the third heat race. Now you have to sit through the other 3 heat races, a D, a C, a B, and then you get to go back out again. And it's kind of like you can sit there and amp yourself out. Where
Oh,
I've actually,
absolutely.
it's, I don't know, iRacing is just, I think for the person that wants to get into, that wants to have kind of the feeling of that they've done, that they kind of know what goes on. I mean, obviously you're not going to get everything, but to kind of understand of the throttle control and what it takes to be fast and all that sort of stuff. And the actual racing of it has been really good the last few months. So I think it's kind of one of those, it's a great way for somebody to get into it that wants to be involved in the sport, but doesn't really know how, and go in, be respectful, become part of a community, and have fun.
So I want to dive into that, and we never really officially started this for interviews, thing, but nevertheless,
That seems about fitting for how I like to roll.
I love the conversation. It's like I'm just sitting here having a beverage, and we're talking about awesome shit, in my opinion. So I want to dive really deep, and not really deep, but a couple of questions deep into what you just said. How do you dive into a community? Because you put together a race team, and as we're sitting here having this conversation right now, the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Championship race is literally on NBC TV right now,
which is one of the most wild. And
there is a video game championship that's being aired on national TV right now. That's what we're talking about right now.
And here's what's jacked up is we can't get a USAC National Championship race or a World of Outlaw Championship race live on TV, but we have iRacing on a national network with 500,000 people watching it.
And it's truly amazing. And the perspectives you get, it's just like watching a real race. And the second you can just turn off the fact that it's equally as good of racing, if not better, in my opinion.
I agree.
And the broadcast is truly just the same. I think the guys at Flow have done such an amazing job with this USAC series. It's just like watching a race. It's just like listening to Rob Klepper and them, on the real broadcast. The parallels are so spot on, in my opinion. And then you don't have any of the shitty things about going to a dirt track, like waiting for track prep and all the crap like that. You just get all the good stuff, and then you get on.
Absolutely.
You get in and you get out, and it's such a cool experience. But when did that dynamic? And actually, I'm going to shut up. I want to go back to your team, and how does somebody get involved like that? And what's having a team actually mean in iRacing right now?
When I started this about a year and a half ago, it was basically me and actually a buddy of mine, AJ Job, that he was kind of the pusher to get me in. And then Dallas Breeze is a great photographer that he also played. Jeffrey Stewart, he played, and they were all like, you got to get in on this. And so I finally did. And, I did okay, but then it was okay. So then me and AJ started working together on some setup stuff, and then Dallas got into the fold, and then Jeff got into the fold, and then we started working on stuff, and then it kind of blossomed from there. And actually a guy by the name of Zane Scott actually got a hold of me one day on Facebook and said, hey, you've kind of got some promise. It looks like, how about I give you a little bit of help as far as like setups goes? And I said, send them on over. Great. Cause I need all help I can get.
Right.
And that kind of blossomed into Tyson Landis getting a hold of me, and there's a team called Team SETI that's been around since iRacing pretty much started, and or at least as far as dirt side of it has. And they wanted me to come aboard, and I was like, well, seems like a good idea, and it immediately got me quicker. That team atmosphere, and then kind of when James James actually found me through a podcast randomly, and
That's what he
then
said.
started watching my Twitch streams, and he got into some hosted races that we run, and then he just like whooped all of our asses, and I'm like, no, I'm locking you up before anybody else even gets a chance to. And just started helping him out with wing stuff, and he was really good at non-wing, as you guys can tell what he's been doing.
And so for anybody listening, I'm going to pause you real quick right there. So the James you're talking about is James Tiernan.
Yeah, James Tiernan,
who we did a conversation with a week ago or so, but he's racing in the USAC Pro Series right now. He's racing for an opportunity to win real money, $6,000 to win the whole thing, and 3-1, I think. So it's a real deal. It's as legitimate as any local dirt track racing.
Oh,
series,
absolutely.
and in many cases pays more money to win with nominal costs. So I love that dynamic.
When he ran second at Eldora on a video game, that paid what 10th does at Putnamville for a weekly show.
Yep.
So that just throws it all into perspective right there.
Truly.
It's but when James and them got on board, it was just kind of, and James has even said it a few times, Tyler Schell has said it too, that when you have more ideas, it's just like anything else. If Keith Coons is kind of a bad example because the guy's a genius at whatever, but the one car teams don't have anybody else to bounce something off of.
Yep.
Where Keith may be able to put the same setup on two different guys' cars. One goes out and says, well, it's this. The other guy goes out and feels it's this. You can adjust, and then you kind of massage and make something better. From the team atmosphere of it, I don't think it's necessary to be on a team if you take the time and learn the sim. Some of the stuff that you do on the sim, obviously, you cannot do in real life because it's simulated. It's not the same thing. But when you can have all those different ideas coming together as one, it always helps. That's been the biggest thing for me. And especially when you get in a situation, if somebody gets into a funk where they've had a bad few days at work, you can get on iRacing and usually cheer somebody up. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of, the team aspect of it has grown a lot. Swindell there, and we're talking at least on the wing side of things right now. Casey Kane has a team. Craig Kinzer has a team. Dave Blaney has a team. Team SETI is part of the Wicked Cushion banner, which he's really kind of been the catalyst for a lot of the wing stuff. The non-wing side is growing. I thought it was absolutely awesome the other night at Eldora. My phone went off when I was helping James, and it was Kevin Thomas Jr., and he sent me a text and said,
I heard this story. I love it.
I was like, he goes, hey, tell him to run the middle through, or tell him to get a lane off the top in 3 and 4 and diamond 1 and 2. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And I said something to James, and he's like, he started kind of freaking out of like, why is Kevin texting you? I'm like, just do your thing, just whatever. And but I think that the more it progresses, the more we're going to see more involvement from USAC, the more we're going to see involvement from USAC teams and things like that. I think there's a lot of growth that's eventually going to happen.
I really think, just to kind of, take that one step deeper. So many of these guys, I know like Emerson Axum, he's a, young micro racer around here, and, he's gotten in Petrie's midget a couple times.
Very good shoe too.
Oh, absolutely. He's a great driver. And I've had a chance to watch him run micros, but he's on iRacing all the time. Well, I haven't seen him as much. I haven't been on as much recently, but again, he's always running up front. He's always doing a good job. He's a great racer. And I think there's so many things that it can teach you.
Absolutely.
It's also a way for, the financial constraints that, limit some with real racing. This really provides an opportunity for drivers, in my opinion, to develop a skill set, to understand what racing's about, to understand, how to communicate with somebody on set.
Absolutely.
James was telling me last week that, just some of the conversations you guys have had around setups and, try this line, those are the same dynamics that go into real driver development.
Oh, absolutely.
We're missing from some professional teams as well. And so there's
Absolutely.
so many parallels that you can really help a driver, I think, if they start winning enough stuff. I know there's enough guys like you and I out there that get interested, get excited, and then want to go help somebody in a bigger way. And I think the more
absolutely.
exposure it gets, the more exciting it gets.
Well, and especially for like the younger kids, I know on iRacing sometimes they get a bad rap if they, but I don't really see it too much out of the ones that really truthfully race that want to be there.
I agree.
If you use iRacing as a tool, not to necessarily make yourself a faster driver on a real racetrack, but if you make it to where you can hone in racecraft, you can use it to pick situational awareness and a lot of things like that. I mean, setup work, not so much, but if you're working with somebody terminology, like you mentioned James, I'll run through a lot of the same terminology that like me and Scott do when we go run Gas City on a Friday night of going, okay, take me through a lap around Gas City. What's it doing? What's the car doing on entry? What's it doing middle, exit? How is it down the straightaway? That sort of thing. And once I got James kind of thinking in that mindset of, tell me what it's doing into the corner. And if the first thing out of his mouth was, well, it's doing something funky. Okay, then we just need to stop right there. What is it doing that's funky on entry? Let's fix that first and then proceed through the rest. And now that he's kind of, and again, James has never raced a real car in his life. He's never worked with anybody before. But he's also one of those guys that I think if given an opportunity to get into a real car at some point, I really think that he would do pretty well.
I do too.
It's just one of those, it's one of those weird dynamics that you can learn a lot about how racing works through iRacing. And once you get that terminology down of, kind of what you want, another buddy of mine, actually, they bought a mini sprint a couple of years ago and it was at the end of the season, but he was like, I want to kind of figure out what I'm doing because he'd never raced on dirt before. He picked up iRacing and he's like, he learned to drive the car with his hands, where you hear so many race car drivers that seat of the pants feeling. And I struggle with that on iRacing a lot of, I can't feel it in my ass, so I don't know what the car is doing. And a lot of the same struggles that a lot of, of the real race car drivers have. But when he went from transition from iRacing to a real car, he's like, okay, I can feel everything now, because he was feeling things in his hands that he was getting through the wheel with the feedback that I never would have thought about 10 years ago. So he was able to transition it and make it even more comfortable with him because he's feeling feedback from the front wheels through the wheel and everything else. So I think there's a lot of good tools for it. I think racecraft's a big one. And I think just the racing with respect thing, I think that's another big one too. So it's a fantastic tool. And I think it's a bigger marketing opportunity even for the younger drivers out there. If I was restarting my career right now and I was an 18, 19-year-old kid that was, racing for my dad or whatever, any day I was not in the shop, I would have Twitch going or Facebook or whatever, and using that as a marketing tool, as a way to promote your sponsors and obtain sponsorship. Because now not only
talk to people, I mean, you go get I mean, nobody's going to give you sponsorship. I could literally do a whole series on this in time, but I mean, nobody's going to give you money unless they know you well. I mean, name the last person that you would write a check to based on the way a marketing proposal looks. Hell no,
absolutely.
It ain't going to happen. You support people that you like, know, and trust. Period.
Absolutely.
And it's such a great way to get to know people. And we've seen this with our real estate business. You've given many examples of this already, yourself, but you start putting out the information you want, you start letting people know who you are, you immediately start attracting people to you that like the same stuff.
Absolutely.
And all you need is one good connection, one good conversation, and it changes everything.
Well, absolutely. I had actually sent over a real sponsorship proposal to a guy that I'm, we're fairly close with, and I sent him a sponsorship proposal out for our real race team, and I said, what's the number one thing that you want out of everything that you could possibly get back? He goes, I want to feel involved. I want to feel like when I show up to the track, I'm part of your team. I want to be able to, and not in a way of I want to be able to call the shots and be, King Tut, but I want to, I want a crew guy to feel comfortable enough to go, hey, the car's filthy, rags are over there.
Exactly.
I want to be involved and I want to have fun and all that. And he said with some of the guys that he sponsored in the past, that some he's felt great with, some that he hasn't, and it's kind of like you feel it out. And I wrote it in there that sponsorships, in my opinion, are dead. There's no such thing as a sponsorship anymore.
Completely
It's all
agree.
it's all partnerships, and
Yep.
you have to be a partner. You have to find somebody to partner with that is, look at on the cup level. There's guys in the cup level that I honestly don't think they can drive their way out of a wet paper sack, but they have found
They're marketable.
somebody that believes in them so much and enjoys them that they're willing to pump in hundreds of thousands of dollars into, and they don't care. They just want to be involved. They want to be happy, and they want to be treated well. And that, I think, is such a big piece that's missing in real racing. And I think it's something that's excuse me, I think that it's something that's starting to kind of peel over into iRacing a little bit too, as this stuff grows. When I first started on this sim, I literally had just a yellow car with a 79 on it, and now I'm legitimately, I'm sitting here looking at a picture of it right now, and there is, 5 to 7 people on the thing that is legitimately invested, whether it was product or time or money, into myself to make this whole thing work. And to me, that's pretty incredible. But it's one of those things where every one of them is a partner. I don't consider them just, oh, they gave me money, so they got this on the side of the thing. It's not ever been the case with me. So I think that's a lot of things that's missing within real racing too, is a lot of guys just go, well, how big do you want the sticker to be? Well,
it so means nothing. I mean, the sticker truly could mean absolutely shit, excuse my language, but it just doesn't mean anything, because it's what do I do with that sticker? And I think something that you said there, and this is going to take a different turn here than I think we really wanted to go with this, but
I'm really good at taking segues.
But I think it ties in well, and it's a great message for people, because if you want people to invest in your racing career, whether it's through sim racing, whether it's through anything, you have to build those relationships with people that can afford to do so, and
absolutely
that can write a check or help influence a decision in some way, shape, or form. That only comes through having conversations like this and getting to know people on a personal level. And I think so many drivers right now are afraid to go out and have a real conversation because they don't want to offend somebody. They don't want to say anything. But go back to NASCAR's glory days. You had somebody that you hated and you had somebody that you loved in every situation. And right now, every interview is the same. It's just the same BS that you hear. And I want to cheer on somebody that I don't like, or, there's a USAC driver right now that I won't name the name, but it's like, I don't really like him a whole lot, but I love the fact that it's polarizing for people. Some people,
absolutely,
some people don't. And I think every sport needs that. You have to have a villain. You have to have a good guy. You have to have a story to tell that engages people.
Absolutely.
And just what little bit I've gotten to know James here this year, he's become one of my favorite guys to have conversations with. And we've found out we've got so many other things in common. And we talk a little bit about business and aviation, and it's awesome. He's somebody that I am thrilled to have supported in just a micro way this year, and it's turning out to be a whole lot of fun. And it's
absolutely
into more. And maybe support him in a micro way this year, but show me a little result, and then I'm going to go in a lot more next year. And that's
absolutely
partnerships, if you want to call them that, or marketing partnerships.
Yep.
In my mind, and from what I've learned, that's what people are looking for. So
that's 100% it. I mean, sponsors don't always, I don't know of any sponsor that's gone, oh, that guy won 7 races last year, I want that.
So don't care.
That's nobody cares. Nobody cares. You could go sign into every USAC race and run 18th every single week. And if you make that sponsor feel happy and you make them feel welcome and you do your obligations of what you're supposed to do, they're not going to leave you.
And you can have so much fun with all of that too.
God!
Again, there's so many great stories to tell, and we've done so much like little stuff marketing with a few drivers all year long. It's fun. I enjoy it. I take my GoPros out, and then I end up getting an opportunity to go film for USAC because I'm like hanging off Justin Grant's car, putting a GoPro on, and somebody sees me.
Yeah.
And it led to I got paid to go help film some races this year, it's like because you're around it, you're doing something that you
Absolutely.
love. And I want to go to one last thing here, and then I'll let you get on with your evening. But you said something a minute ago that people want to find that purpose. They want to feel like they're contributing at the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as an old driver, like I don't mean to say old, but a former driver like yourself or myself, it's like I don't want to go to the track and watch because that's effing boring. It's just not what I want to do. I want to go to the track and support. I want to feel like I'm contributing in some way. And Dale Earnhardt Jr., I was listening to on his podcast the other day, and he said the same thing. He's like, I would go to the track when I wasn't driving, and I'm like, I don't even know, I don't know what to do with my hands, Ricky Bobby thing.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
do I do? And he's like, that's how he started to transition into broadcasting, because it was another way he could contribute, still be around his people,
Absolutely.
and find a way to help everybody have fun. And it's
Absolutely.
and he's done a masterful job with his podcast and just sharing stories. I love listening to it. And he's found his next calling. He does a beautiful job with it.
His podcast is amazing.
It's
When he was actually racing, I did not like Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Same.
at all. Couldn't stand him.
I was a fan.
I didn't like him. And when he retired and he started, talking about racing on Twitter and did the podcast thing, I'm like, all right, I really get it now. Like I put two and two together. I like it. So he's a good dude, and he seems like a good dude. I feel like he could go have a beer with me anytime.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't think twice about it. And
he seems like a real dude. And I think to dive into his podcast, but I think from a young driver standpoint, there's so many things you can learn, because he's pulling out all these stories from, there was one with Rick Hendrick and Richard Childress that truly everybody that cares about racing should listen to, because the business of what has made them get to where they are. They tell the stories about how, Earnhardt was involved here, and Tim Richmond over here, and Jeff Bodine, and that. It's just like there's so many lessons to be learned, I feel,
absolutely,
for how to evolve your career if that's what you want to do. Man, there's some things I wish I could go back and do different if I was 18.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's like, wow, I just would have had to talk to this person or go connect those dots. So anyway, I'm rambling a little bit.
But I think that speaks volumes. I don't want to get everybody like overload guys' trailers on race weekends, but go talk to these people. Like, legitimately, there's a lot of the guys in USAC are some of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. Go talk to them, and go talk to them. You're not gonna hurt their feelings or anything like that by after the race is over going, hey, I'm trying to get my start in working on race cars. What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? What do I need to do? How do I need to make it happen?
And so many guys are looking for good help too. I mean, because
you can't. It's hard to find good help because it is such a commitment. But
and it's a demanding schedule. I mean, those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
It's such a demanding schedule. But yeah, it also leads to. I mean, we're good friends with some people that work at Andretti, and he's like, my number one problem is I can't find people that want to show up and do the work.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
And it's a great way to get into that as well by going out and helping some of these professional USAC teams or whatever. Just
absolutely
to go meet people. But no, anyway, man, I could talk about this.
Oh yeah, we could go on for days. We could go on for days like that. But
I want to ask you one more question, man, just to pull this out of you, because again, you've been around the sport so long, you've seen it from so many different perspectives, and I feel you do have a lot to contribute to the sport, just beyond just the iRacing standpoint, but just your wealth of knowledge, I feel. And so what would you kind of say for, let's go and talk to that young driver right now, but how would you recommend building a following using iRacing, using like Twitch? I know you're heavily involved with that, but how would you help somebody connect a couple dots there to really help move their business, move their career forward using some of the stuff you've learned?
I would say the biggest thing would be if you were, a 13 to 18-year-old kid that was trying to make it, I would brand yourself. You don't have to come up with a crazy nickname. You don't have to do anything weird, just something that's simple that you can stick with. And once you do that, start marketing it. Start marketing yourself. There's a difference between marketing and spamming. I've never.
Absolutely.
If you're going to want to start a Twitch channel, to start promoting your sponsors, go out and spend a little bit of money and make your stream look good. Go out and spend a little bit of money to make sure you've got a good enough computer that's something that people would want to watch. And, use it as a platform to practice public speaking, use it as a platform to talk to multiple people, use it as a platform, to kind of show off that you're decent and on a sim, but use it as a way to where you can spend, a couple minutes a day promoting your sponsors, and then working those Twitch streams into your Twitter. If you can spend the time to sit and learn, and it's something that I haven't done, but I want to, of editing videos for YouTube. If you can go on, like, perfect example, what David Gravel's doing. There's a kid out in California or Oregon that's been doing it. Tanner, I can't remember his name. Tanner Holmes, I think. If you can vlog a little bit, create something to where you have, so that way if somebody isn't, let's say, big on Twitch, but they go to YouTube a lot and they watch sprint car videos. Well, if you go and show a good vlog of your racing weekend, and then basically kind of push your Twitch stream with it along with your sponsors, you're going to get some of those people to come over to you. So you can basically kind of cross promote between Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and then iRacing in general. Keep yourself at a good, respectful manner on there. Work through the avenues that you're comfortable with first, and then start branching out and adding on. That's kind of what I did with mine, where mine just started off as just kind of a, hey, I want to show a couple people what iRacing is, and then it just kind of has grown. And I think that's, if I was 18 in this market right now, the first thing that I would do if I played video games is I would get a computer, get myself set up on iRacing, and start streaming it, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Mixer, whatever platform you choose. As long as you can create a fan following or create a following of people that want to support you and want to help you, you're going to transition those from video game people into race fans. And when you turn them into race fans, you can get them to the racetrack and make sure that they're, just like we talked about before, feel welcomed, feel comfortable and all that sort of stuff. I've taken, since the Twitch stream started, I think I want to say it's close to 12 or 13 people now that have gone to a dirt track race for either their first time or their first time in a long time, that are now going. I've had people go, man, these on the game, these things are badass. I'm like, dude, go watch them in real life. Where, like, what state do you live in?
No justice, yeah.
And we'll pull up on. I'm like, okay, here's the track that's closest to you. You need to go to this race. This will blow your mind. And I think if the more interaction you can have with people, with fans, with your base, the better off you are. And then also don't be frightened to, reach out to people and go, hey, here's what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to do. Even if you're not there yet, if you can talk to somebody and they understand your vision and understand what you want to do, they might not come on board in the facet that you want them to be right now, but let it grow. Even if they help you out with, hey, my stream needs a webcam. Will you spend the $50 and buy a webcam?
It can be
perfect. If it's something that simple, and then next year it just keeps growing and growing. So, I mean, don't spam, don't be annoying, but you don't have to be persistent either. But as long as you talk to people and just talk to them for a while, that's going to do more for your racing career than anything. Some of the best race car drivers that I know that never got a shot was because they wouldn't open their mouth.
Truly. I cannot believe that anymore.
And you can't, and that was 20 years ago, when it really, back then, it didn't matter. But now, in this day and age of the digital world, where, Natalie Decker gets crapped on Twitter 9 ways to Sunday, but the reason why she's there, she's marketable, she deals with her sponsors well, she talks to her fans, she's friendly. If you guys can talk, you will get farther than what you can
winning a race.
Absolutely. You could go win. You could start 50 races and win 50 of them, but if your interviews sound like, yeah, it was cool, and that was it, it's never gonna get anywhere. You have to be personable.
You have to learn the art of the conversation. You have to learn how to engage people, and you just have to learn how to tell your story. People buy you; they don't buy your wins. I mean,
Correct.
there's so many drivers out there that, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, that are racing at the highest level because they found somebody or many people that believe in who they are as people.
Absolutely.
Not because of their racing skills. And I tell my son this with, he's big into Fortnite streaming, but he's always pissed because, I could beat this guy. I could beat this guy. But you're not watching those guys because they play the game better. You're watching them because they're funny or because they're teaching you something. You're getting an education or you're getting, comedy out of it, which is why you watch them, which is why they get paid by everybody to keep doing it, because people keep watching.
The day that race car drivers, whether it's on a sim or on a real racetrack, realize they're in the entertainment business and they are only there because people are willing to pay money to watch them do something that they love that they can't or won't do or aren't willing to do. Once you realize that you're in the entertainment business, everything should change. Every single thing should change. Justin Grant has sold more t-shirts, I guarantee, in the last 10 years because he's absolutely nuts than any, I mean,
dude, I had this made because I love that picture of him blowing up a can on his helmet. That's my favorite picture that Rich took, and I literally had it made because I think it's a badass picture.
And that's Justin. I mean, I can remember, I'm aging myself, but I remember back years ago at Gas City when it was him, Scotty Weir, and 2 or 3 other guys that would basically win every Friday night at Gas City. And everybody would have the big fat heads, in the grandstands. And I'm like, there's a reason people like Justin, and there's a reason people like Kevin Thomas, and there's a reason people like Wyndham. And you have to be in the entertainment business in order to understand how that works. Jack Audenshield hasn't won races consistently in 15 years, but he is still one of the most popular drivers.
Hilarious.
Because he's an awesome dude. Every single time that he gets on the racetrack, if he's 12th in the C main, watch him because he's putting on a show somewhere.
Yeah.
And guys like that understand what it's about, and you have to be in the entertainment business in order to make it work. And I would be willing to bet that if I went back through and watched my first streams, I would cringe and be so annoyed with myself.
You always do.
But looking at it now, we got a pretty decent following for what iRacing gets, and we just like to have fun, joke around. People don't want to, people get off of work, they want to sit at home, and what's the difference between watching me play a video game and talking to you guys about racing or watching that 70s show on Netflix? It's the same exact thing, and it's all entertainment. So anybody that's young, even young or old, doesn't matter. If you can get into streaming, have fun with it, but communicate. If you can learn how to communicate and enjoy your chat and talk to them and engage is more so the bigger thing than talking. But if you can engage with them, keep them interested, keep them coming back, you're starting to create something. It may take you a couple years, and that's the thing to not get discouraged with. It is perfectly fine. So, I'm fortunate enough to where I kind of got in, I think, at the right time, where I think, and now it's still the perfect time to get into it because it's still a pretty small pie, and there's a lot of pieces of it still. So when you can get into it, the Fortnite community blew up overnight. Now, if you want to become a Fortnite streamer, good grief, you got to do something real crazy because there's 12,000 of them.
Those are some red waters to be swimming in, yeah.
I mean, on Twitch right now, on average, there will be 30, 35 iRacing streamers. So you have people that are scrolling through and picking, and you've only got a little bit of time to catch them. And if you can do that, it does nothing but help your sponsors out. So
truly. That's it. Billy, I have got to scoot here, but dude, I could have this conversation all day, and let's definitely do it again.
Hey, we'll do another one. I'm always down for that. So
cool.
Thanks for having me, man.
Let's make it happen, brother. Have a good one, man. Appreciate it.
Peace out, guys.
See ya.